Hello everybody, my name is Derek, and today in Awesome Sauce, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. I'm playing Firefighter Simulator 2014, but this is pre-recorded footage. And the reason I'm doing this, or I pre-recorded my footage, is because I want to share a story of my firefighter or firefighting experience. And I felt it was most appropriate I do it during these videos. Just because I can relate to them a little bit, to the video a little bit more. So there's two main kind of topics I want to talk about: crazy insane people and morbidly obese people, and how they affect firefighters in the workplace. And I kind of want to go in depth with those. So let's jump into the game and yeah, let's start the story. Alright, you guys. So, okay, how do I start the story? It's simple, really. This is my first ever experience with interning at a fire station. I've done it multiple times now for over 2 years now, and but this is my very first experience. And I remember almost all my calls so vividly. But my first call ever is that actually wasn't canceled. We get dispatched to a local disturbance and they need a psych evaluation. So myself and 3 other firefighters are inside a BLS, or basic life support, fire engine, and we lights and sirens and we go. And this is my first time. This is something I've always dreamt of doing, and it's a sugar rush. It's adrenaline is pumping through me, and I was super excited to be able to be a part of this. We're flying down the streets. This is my, I've always wanted to become a firefighter. Well, I shouldn't say that. Ask me that, a few years ago, I would have said heck no. And I'll talk more about that on a later video of why I decided to become a firefighter. But anywho, we're flying down the streets, and I see these 2 cop cars parked on the side of the house, and we're like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's the location we're heading to. The dispatch told us it was a church, and on scene it was actually a house. The house must have been some church, an Orthodox church or something, but anyways, we get onto the scene, and I see there's 3 police officers, 2 male, 1 female, and a scraggly, and I can still remember him so vividly. He's hairy. His hair's been grown out for months and months, and he hasn't groomed at all. He hasn't showered. He hasn't done nothing. He looks like the lowest tier a human being could be. He looks dirty. He looks infested, and he was honestly a dirty person. So we get on scene, and this is my first time I've actually really experienced this type of human being ever. And it's strange because growing up in a community where I lived, and it's a fairly new community, you don't really think about the darker side of your community that you're living in, the darker side of society in which you're a part of. No, it was an eye-opener, really, that people living in these situations and circumstances are living among us, and living among me, who a young, 17-year-old male, almost 18, is seeing for the very first time. But back to the story. We arrive on scene, we jump out, and we're walking over to the police officers, and we see this yucky, dirty, hairy man, who's obviously homeless, laying on the ground, his hands cuffed and his legs cuffed, and there's a chain in between his legs and hands. This was obviously to protect our. This was implemented to not only keep me safe, but the officers safe, and the rest of the firefighters and paramedics safe. And it's scary because, and I'll get more into depth of the stuff he said to me. But this man, he wasn't on any drugs. That's what the firefighters told me at the time. I didn't know it, I didn't know differently or otherwise. Now I do, but at the time I didn't. But he was so crazy. He has foam. It almost looked like he was rabid. He had like foam coming out of his mouth, and he was spitting everywhere. And they eventually, the paramedics had to put what they call a spit hood over his face. It's kind of like a bag, but you can breathe through it, and it just prevents the occupant from spitting onto the first responder, or anyone near this man. So we put a spit hood on him, just so he's not spitting, his nasty, gunky spit and saliva all over us. And I'm glad we had we had that. And while he's on the ground, he's talking in this really, really soft, raspy voice. You could tell he did use. You could tell he was an avid meth user and all that. But the reason he was called here, or the reason police were called, and ultimately why we were called, it wasn't because of drugs. It was because he was squatting behind some family's dumpster in their backyard with a golf club. I mean, a golf club of all things. And the family got scared, and they called police, and the police arrested him. They detained him. They called us for a psych evaluation. They pink sheeted him, which basically means, how can I explain it? When we're called on scene, and and the police are obviously there, the police give them, and the person is hurt, or they're a danger to themselves, I guess. They have two options that the police give them. They can either go willingly to the hospital via, the fire department, or they could be what's called pink sheeted, and that's basically where the police basically take them into custody. They force the user, because they are now detained, and they are considered arrested, or they are put under the cuff, and they are forced to go to the hospital. So you could either go to the hospital willingly, and no charges are against you, or you could be put against, you're under arrest and you're forced to go. And that's what pink sheeted is. In simple terms. Well, anyways, this man was pink sheeted, so he obviously was going to go to the hospital. And so what happens is, my captain tells me to go grab the stretcher. I luckily had another candidate firefighter / EMT help me with that, because this is my first real time operating a stretcher. I mean, I've used them before in class, in my firefighting EMT class, but this was the first real time on scene that I was actually able to do this. And yeah, it was fun. It was nerve-wracking, but it was amazing experience. So anyways, we grabbed the stretcher out of the ambulance, and by that time an ambulance had pulled up. It was a ALS, or advanced life support, so paramedics. These are people who've gone to school longer than your basic EMT, which I am, and my crew was. So me and my candidate, I guess partner, kind of a ordeal, went to the ambulance, pulled the stretcher out, and we walked over, or we wheeled it to the guy on the ground. I don't remember his name. I'm not going to say it anyways for confidentiality reasons, but we'll call this man Bob. No, yeah, we'll call him Bob. Bob was on the floor, and he's trying to talk. He's kind of hard to understand. But the cops, you know, they're talking to my captain and the rest of the firefighters, and they order us to move him onto the stretcher. So three firefighters slash EMTs slash paramedics and one cop. Me being one of the three, I guess. Lift up this man. You know, he's wriggling around like a worm, if that's a word. Wriggling. He's moving around like a worm. He's trying to flop out of our arms. And we eventually get him in the stretcher, and we have to lock him down on that because he's a threat to himself. He's trying to roll off and hurt himself. This man was obviously, you know, he wasn't there consciously. Well, I shouldn't say that. He was there consciously, but he wasn't there, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so we get him on the stretcher. We tie him down with basically they're seat belts, but they just go over the chest and the arms and the legs just to kind of immobilize and keep him there so he doesn't, you know, try to roll off. But we wheel him into the ambulance, and I jump in with my partner, and another paramedic jumps in, and we close the doors and we head to the hospital. And this hospital, it was kind of near and dear to my heart because my grandma had surgery there, and there was a rehab center right across the street from it, and so I spent a lot of my time there growing up. And so it was kind of cool to see this different side of it, because we ended up going to the ER, the emergency room, with this man, to, you know, check him in. But anyways, on the way to the hospital itself, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this man, my partner and this other, you know, EMT. They're just chatting away. You know, they're talking about the academy and when they went through and past experiences like that. But since I really couldn't relate to that, you know, to them talking about the academy, because I'll be going through it soon, now that I'm older. But at the time, I really couldn't relate to them. So anyways, I'm looking at this man, and you know, it was weird. I'm looking at, and it's like the thought came to my mind that I was above him, I was superior to him. But I almost had to shun that thought away, because you know what? Everybody has their ups and downs, and you know, this man was obviously having a down. You know, this wasn't a high point in his life. So I had to push that thought away. I honestly had that thought. I was like, you know what? I'm better than this man. And at the time, that may be true, but now we don't know the whole situation. So we really can't be quick to judge. So, we're in the car, and that, I mean, he wasn't nice. I'll come right out. He wasn't nice. He said some really harsh things and mean things. For the sake of the audience, I'll say it, but I'm gonna keep it clean. One thing he said, and doing this, they told right in the beginning. They say, do not take it personal. You know, they're gonna say it regardless of who you are. But I thought to myself when my captain was telling me this, I thought of things that they might say, you know, like "oh F you" and stuff like that. But Bob struck a whole new level, basically, and it kind of took me off guard for a second, but only a second. Don't worry, only a second. One of the very first things he said, and you know, to me was, "Hey you." He's like, "Hey you." You know, sorry for my accent or my tone, but he's like, "Hey you." And keep in mind, his voice was a lot more difficult to hear. It was almost like he was trying to forcefully push out the air from his lungs, and he was forcefully trying to talk, and it wasn't working very well. So it was very, very hard to hear him. But he's basically saying, "Hey you, I'm gonna I'm gonna F, or let's see how, what did he say exactly? He's like, I'm gonna F your sister while your dad watches, I think. And then, and he said some other things, but that main comment, I'm gonna F your sister while your dad watches, blew my mind. I was like, why would somebody, you know, be so cruel? And that really took me off guard. And I don't know. I never experienced anyone quite, you know, I don't know if I would consider him evil. But I've never really experienced anyone on that kind of a level before. And it really, it took me a second, you know, just a second, but it made me realize that society and life isn't as perfect as you think. Even if you're living in a what seems to be a perfect community, you know, a young community, you're still gonna have your bad stuff, as in like an older community. But yeah, there's that experience, and we take him to the hospital, we drop him off, and yeah, that was a crazy experience for me. That was my first real call. You know, and it's funny. It's because it's like you grow your whole life, or you live your whole life. You know, you live your whole life. You know, living life, not knowing the evils and the terrors of the world. You spend a day, you know, as a firefighter or as a cop or a police officer or someone of that nature, and that type of career, you know, and it you know, you don't fully understand it. Anyways, we then, after that call, we really didn't have anything else for the day. We went to the gym, we worked out, we got a false alarm, so we went to this church where this lady was having her quinceañera, and her younger brother or her nephew or her cousin or someone around the age of like 5 or 6 accidentally pulled the fire alarm, just probably because he was curious. So we go on that call, and that took us, you know, 10 minutes, and we're out of there. So that was a really easy call. But then we get this call to what was it exactly? It was, what was the words? It was a lady or a female in distress, or a patient in distress. So all we know is that she's a female and she's obviously in distress. The address, however, was an address that these firefighters went to on a almost daily occurrence. You know, they're checking on her once or twice a day, and so when they heard the address, they knew exactly what it was. They wouldn't tell me though, and that was the interesting part. They wouldn't tell me what this disturbance was, but they had this call all the time. So I was kind of swept back and kind of confused. It was someone in distress, but yet they always go on this lady. You know, this is an all new experience for me. So we arrived probably 3 or 4 blocks from the fire station itself, so not very far. It took us maybe 5 minutes, less than 2 minutes of lights and sirens, because that's how they wanted us to respond. We get on scene, and it was a sight to be held. Goodness gracious. It was this lady who fell out of her wheelchair. However, this lady was easily the size of a what is that? a blue whale, you know, the largest mammal in the world. You know, this lady was easily 700 pounds, and I don't want to, you know, offend anybody, and I'm sorry if I do, but this is the nature of the job. You're gonna see things and you're gonna have your own opinions on them because you see them so often. But this lady was 700 pounds, or easy, you know, give or take, you know, 50 at least. But you know, I'm just gonna roughly say 700 pounds, because that's what my captain told me, that they estimated her weight to be 700. But she slid out of her wheelchair, and I don't remember exactly the analogy he used, but he's like, when you squish an exercise ball, or no, it's when you stand on an exercise ball, it's very uneven and you tend to fall off, kind of. He said that's what it's like for her to sit on that chair. When she sits on it, because of her weight, she tends to slide out really easily. And she's not even the one that calls. It's always her neighbor or her daughter who calls in. But we roll up to her, and she, you know, she looks at the firefighters and me. It took her a minute to make eye contact with me, probably because she didn't notice me at first. But she starts making small talk like it's a normal thing, you know, and she's not even talking about her falling. What was she talking about? There's something about what happened, like something at the mall the other day. She opened up with, like, her experience with shopping at the mall. Like, of all things, why that? You know, so that was kind of a confusing experience. You know, rest assured, you know, they get annoyed. Trust me, they get annoyed when they have to keep coming back. And I agree. Now that I've been with them for a while, I have, you know, it gets annoying when, you know, to go back day in, day out to help this lady. But we do it because we are public servants. Whether we want to or not, we do it. Any time of day or weather, we do it. You know, that's just our nature. We are public servants. We serve the public. Anyways, eventually what we ended up having to do, the captain stood back and he's laughing. He says, all right, Derek, go ahead. And we basically use this thing called a mega mover. They have a name in the fire service that they use, but they shun the name, but yet still use sometimes. It's called a well tarp. And this isn't, you know, meant to insult the person. It's simply, they call it a well tarp because it looks like a tarp they would use to move a whale from captivity to the wild or something like that. You know, when they're moving from the tame to the ocean, that tarp that whale's on, it looks similar to that, and that's why they call it a whale tarp. But he says, go grab the mega mover, and I knew where it was because but previously, while we were at the station, he says, go locate the mega mover because I almost guarantee we'll have a call that involves this lady. So they didn't tell me why. When we got the dispatch call, they didn't tell me why this lady was in distress. But I knew that if this was the lady that they were talking about, I knew she was obviously overweight. I just didn't imagine 700 pounds overweight. So I grabbed the mega mover, basically roll her onto her side. We tuck it under her butt. We roll her the other way. We pull the rest out, and now she's on it. And essentially, what we had to do is we each grabbed the corner, and we lifted. Me and the three other No, me and the two other firefighters, the captain just left. He ended up having to jump in a little bit to help, but for the most part, we did it. Me and this one firefighter grabbed the shoulders, the top left and right corner, and the third one, or the second other firefighter grabbed where the feet was. And then my captain obviously came in around the feet to help as well, but we get her in her chair, and boy, it felt like I broke my legs just trying to lift her. I mean, this was like moving a car. Holy cow. It was so heavy. And it was funny because it's like, oh, thank you guys. She literally said, oh, thanks guys, and she wheeled away, and that was the last thing she said to me that day. And I look at my captain. He says, "Oh, what was it? All in a day's work." And he said it like he was proud of it, I guess. Yeah, he said it almost in a sarcastically, a sarcastic tone kind of a thing. But yeah, that was that story, and you know, we go on her all the time when I'm working with them. I go on her all the time. You know, I don't want to insult you or offend you if you're overweight, but when you're 700 pounds overweight and you know, you almost become, you know, a burden almost. And I'm not, again, trying to come across as mean, but when you're 700 pounds and you have to rely on firefighters to get you in your chair multiple times a day, you know, I don't know. I mean, I have to realize that people grow up in different circumstances. So there could have been a third force acting upon her, which made her gain the weight. You know, I don't know what could have caused her to gain all that much weight, but you know, I've never asked her, and I never will. But at the end of the day, for dinner, we ended up going to the Cafe Rio down the street. I live in Utah, so Cafe Rio is quite a big thing. I don't know if it is in any other places, but here in Utah, it's a really nice Mexican restaurant, Latino restaurant, and they have quite good food. They're kind of expensive normally, but for a firefighter, okay, so a normal meal probably is $10, probably 9, 10, $11. That's probably your average, probably. I always get the chicken burrito, but as a firefighter, you're paying no more than like $4, and you know, it's like, oh, as a firefighter, you get so many benefits, and it's awesome. So we're sitting there with my crew, you know, in the Cafe Rio, and we're taking it all in. Everyone's coming to say hi to us. They're giving stickers to the little kids, you know, and that also kind of impacted me. It's like, wow, these guys are willing to let their food get cold in order to talk to, you know, the young ones and the kids and just be there to support their community, you know. These guys are totally selfless. It's something I strive to be every day, selfless. I still need help, but it's something that's completely obtainable. And so we eventually got to our food, and we're eating, and they're you know, just eating and making small talk with each other, and I'm talking to them as well. But the thought came up to my mind is, and this is what really impacted me that day. Everybody eating here who isn't a firefighter, you know, your normal family, your the Cafe Rio co-workers and the chefs and the cashiers and the little girl who just dropped her ice cream or dropped her drink, and it's all over the place, and they're cleaning it up. You know, none of these people really know the evils of the world and the community in which they live in, you know, and that's what really blew my mind. we live our life thinking, you know, not that we live in a perfect society, but nothing bad will usually happen to them, right? You don't wake up one day and say, you know what, I think something bad's gonna happen today. You usually don't think that. Maybe you might sometimes, but usually, you know, a normal person doesn't necessarily think like that every day. You know, I've seen more in one day than a person will see in their lifetime, and seeing that, you know, how those people ate without a doubt in their mind that you know, that a group of men are willing to risk their lives for people who don't even say thank you, and that's what really struck me the most. But anyways, you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the story. If you would like more from me, let me know. I have plenty more. This is my less gory stories. I have so many more stories. Any scenarios I've pretty much been through and I've seen. So if you have a scenario you'd like me to talk about, I could probably come up with one, and from, you know, memories and past experiences that I've actually been through. So if you liked it, you guys, make sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of the story, or you know, topics you want me to talk about and games you want me to play. Remember, this channel isn't necessarily only gaming, so I'll be doing lots of other stuff. So the skies are the limit. There's no ending for what we can do. But yeah, so leave a like, comment down below to let me know what I can do to improve on and what you would like to see and hear. And if you want to take it to the next step, subscribe. It would mean so much to me to get a following, so I can know each and every one of you guys. It would mean so much to me. But yeah, you guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks, you guys.